Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Tomato Tuesday. I went ahead and sold a few different varieties of tomatoes that I don't have growing, some special ones that I ordered, but really it's no need for me to sow tomato seeds because I got volunteer tomatoes popping up all over. Let me show y'all what I'm talking about. This, I have my ginger growing in this pot, and the compost I use to grow my ginger, I have all these young tomato plants that I'm going to transplant. I don't know what variety they are, but they free plants, so I'm gonna go ahead and sow those. And I did start some seeds the other day from the mushroom basket, the indigo blue chocolate, and the orange accordion. All these volunteer tomatoes. I also got a volunteer avocado growing in the middle, but this is all in the ginger pot. That's one. Over here with my pineapple, I got more volunteer tomatoes producing flowers. Over here by the grapes, I got another volunteer tomato, also producing flowers. And over here by my lemons, more volunteer tomatoes. Also producing flowers by my lemon trees. I'm going to separate all the tomato plants that are growing in pots so the plants I initially intended to grow in the pots aren't overcrowded. For the ginger, it was easier for me to remove all contents from the pots and carefully pull away the tomato plants, not disturbing the ginger plant. The pineapples were a bit more challenging, so I carefully pulled the tomato plants, gripping the base of the stem and slowly pulling. Tomato plants came out pretty easy. I also found a volunteer cantaloupe growing and trellising itself along the fence. I carefully removed it as well and replanted the root in the ground right next to the pot where it was growing. The cantaloupe plant also has flowers and pretty soon will be ready to develop fruit set, which means delicious cantaloupes. I ended up with way too many volunteer tomatoes, so I only transplanted the largest ones. I added some organic fertilizer to the holes where I'll be planting them in. I watered the plants prior to removing them from the pots. It's been a partly cloudy day and it just so happened to be extra sunny while I was doing the transplants. I moved quickly to limit the shock during transplant. As soon as I got the plants in the ground, I watered the plants deeply to help the roots quickly establish in their new homes. My backyard was filled with red clay, but over the years of composting and just prior to transplanting these tomato plants, I had layers and layers of leaves covering the soil, and I could see a big difference in the structure and quality of my soil today. Usually I try to space the tomatoes out a bit more than the spacing now, but since these were all extra plants that I was gifted from the garden, I'll crowd them a little and will prune the branches as they grow, so the tomato leaves and stems get plenty air circulation, which is important, especially to prevent fungal leaf diseases from mold developing on moist leaves. The tomato plants benefit a good deal from being planted deep. For the larger plants, I remove the lower leaves and branches and bury some of the stem horizontally. Roots will eventually grow from the buried parts of the stem, and this will allow the tomato plant to absorb even more nutrients from the soil with the additional roots. This also provides a good anchor for the tomato plants that will soon grow really large and can use the extra support. Speaking of extra support, I'll need to trellis these tomatoes really soon. From my experience, an unguided tomato will grow everywhere and stretch out across the ground. Some of my previously planted volunteer tomato plants are producing fruit, and I even found a ripe one ready for the picking.